Let me pivot there to what Deshaun had to say today, because I found it stunning last Friday when he was talking to Aditi Kinkhabwala from the team hotel before the preseason opener when he apologized for the first time. Because what was it before? What was it? It was pull string phrases. I never harassed, I never disrespected, I never assaulted anyone. Whenever he got asked any question about it, that's what he said. There's a snake in my boots. I mean, I don't mean to make light of it, but he had it conditioned that was his response. Now all of a sudden he's apologizing. He issues a statement today saying he apologizes to the people affected. I take accountability for my decisions. And then there he is, speaking to the media, Myles, and proclaiming his innocence. I don't think he gets it. And it's troubling. And I can't help but wonder, a point Josh Alper made on our text thread, I can't help but wonder whether or not the NFL looks at this and says, he's already in violation of his settlement agreement.
Well, I mean, he certainly could be, I guess. But, the other thing, too, I mean, he's talking about how, the pull string phrase from the media availability today was basically, I'm ready to move on with my life. I want to move on with my life. Anytime they are asking him, well, how did you get from being so defiant and saying, I never disrespected any woman to this? And he said, I maintain that. I maintain that I never disrespected any women. And, they said, well, what do you mean when this is the findings? And he says, well, I'm apologizing to anybody who may have been affected by this. And so he's not apologizing in particular to any of the women who accused him of sexual assault.
But he did that Friday night. On Friday night, he said by the women impacted. I mean, it's all over the place. He's all over the place.
I know, but that's what he's saying. And then he also said, Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com asked him a question, and he's basically, well, are you going to explain what your side of this is? And he says, yes, I really hope to, because we've been sort of trying to do that, but we haven't necessarily been able to do it fully. So whatever that means, whatever exactly his side of the story is, I don't know. And I hope that if it ever comes out, or if he tries to go on a podcast or whatever, it needs to be held up to journalistic scrutiny, first of all, because you can't just believe anything anybody says. I feel like that's not, me breaking any new ground by saying that, but whatever he wants to really say, he is still maintaining his innocence in this process. And the fact that he, agreed to a settlement that he said the NFLPA and his legal team agreed to with the NFL, that is him saying, I'm ready to move on with my life.
And here's the exact quote from today. I've always stood on my innocence and always said I've never assaulted anyone or disrespected anyone. I'm going to continue to stand on my innocence. That's the equivalent, frankly, of the defendant at his plea hearing suddenly saying, I didn't do any of this. I didn't do it. I've agreed that I did all this, but I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I know it says I did it. I know I just signed the paperwork that says I did it, but I didn't do it. That's what's got to make the NFL concerned. I'm looking at the press release, the actual one, not the one that was accidentally tweeted, or same thing. Deshaun has committed to doing the hard work on himself that is necessary for his return to the NFL, Roger Goodell said. This settlement requires compliance with a professional evaluation and treatment plan, a significant fine, and a more substantial suspension. Okay, fine. If he thinks he didn't do anything wrong, if he's going to continue to stand on his innocence, what's the point of treatment? What are you being treated for? Well, Deshaun, let's talk about how to properly behave during a massage. Well, I always did. I stand on my innocence. See, this is just troubling because we're led to believe on one hand he's confessing, and then on the other hand he's reserving the right to maintain his innocence. And I think for a lot of people that's not going to fly. I know for me it doesn't. You can't have it both ways. You can't say I'm accountable in your written statement and then say I stand on my innocence in my spoken statement. Well, you can, but the rest of us can call BS on it. And it tells me that he was backed into a corner. He was in checkmate, and he did what he had to do to get back on a football field. Do I have to agree to an 11-game suspension? Well, it's my only way back on a football field this season. I'll do it. Do I have to pay $5 million? If it's my only way back on a football field for week 13 against the Texans, I'll do it. But I still reserve the right to maintain my innocence. That's really not the kind of growth that everybody seems to be looking for in Deshaun Watson. True growth is, I did this. This is my reckoning. I am making amends, not I'm just doing whatever I have to do to get back on with my life, which is kind of what it feels like.
Well, I mean, it's not just what it feels like. That's literally what he's saying, Mike. And I mean, that part of the going to counseling, too, as a part of the settlement agreement, I think we can say that Deshaun Watson has been like, yes, I'm doing this because this is the way to get me back on the football field. And so I don't know if he thinks that the counseling is just for, sending Instagram DMs to different massage therapists and saying, hey, I would like a massage, and how that's not the proper way to get a sports massage. I don't know. But there has to be some sort of counseling that he has agreed to, whether it will be effective or not. I don't know how much he's going to accept it. We don't know. From his own words, though, if he's still maintaining his innocence, then maybe it's not necessarily going to work as well as it should. But you'd have to hope that because it's mandatory and because he's going to have to go to at least some number of these, then something will get into his mind that will help him understand why there was such concerning and predatory, as from Judge Sue L. Robinson's words, predatory behavior that he exemplified there.
Another pull-string phrase for Deshaun Watson, which actually the Browns picked up on in their statement a couple of weeks ago after the Judge Robinson decision. A lot of people were triggered by this. There's just something derisive in the use of that word. Like, that's on you. You're triggered. Why are you triggered by this? This is your problem. Why are you upset? Let me live my life. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm sorry all these people are triggered. Like, they're really being unreasonable. They're being unrealistic. They're being irrational. I just think there are issues here that just shouldn't be ignored, because to the extent the Browns have bet on the idea that Deshaun Watson isn't going to repeat these behaviors, and I'd like to think he's smart enough not to have whatever is compelling him to do what he did manifest itself in this specific way, it doesn't mean it's not going to manifest itself in some other way. Until he admits that what he did was wrong, until he takes a full reckoning and fully understands why he did what he did, why it was wrong, where the line is between consent and non-consent, and when you have to back off, when you think somebody is interested in something that they're showing you by their behavior and their words they're not interested. That's the deeper issue. And until he recognizes that unless this is just good old-fashioned stubbornness, where I'm never going to admit, even though I know in my heart I did wrong, I'm never going to admit it. If that's the case, that's actually good news. That would at least explain why he's doing it. But if he truly doesn't understand why he did something wrong, that's a problem. Because how do you ever solve it if you don't acknowledge that there's even a problem there?
Well, right. And it's when you see the statement that he issued via the Browns where it says, I take accountability, and then you pair that with what he was saying at his press conference where it's, well, I just want to move on with my life. I can't necessarily explain the terms of the settlement because I'm just seeing it. I've just got out here. I've been concentrating on being the best Browns quarterback that I can be, and then I maintain my innocence, and I did nothing wrong, and it's this and it's that. Well, what are you taking accountability for? Are you taking accountability for ostensibly, to use that word again, triggering people? And like that, people who may be affected in some way. Like what are you taking accountability for if not for the actions that Judge Sue L. Robinson said that you have committed? I don't really understand what it is that he's playing at here, other than, I can say I agree to this because I want to move on with my life, but, not really.
And you know what? We'll see whether or not the NFL is troubled by any of this, or whether they just want to move on with their life too and be done with this and be ready if there's any further misconduct at some point down the road to pounce on Deshaun Watson with something even more significant. All right, we're going to let you move on with your lives.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.